Hi everyone, I'm Alisha Lovrich, sports photographer and Canon Ambassador, and I'm here at our Oval office. And I would like to introduce you to three of my friends who are not only killing it on the international stage, but they're absolutely smashing it in their careers off the track as well. So let's meet them.
My name is Julia Ratcliffe and I represent New Zealand in the hammer throw for track and field, and I also work at the Reserve Bank of New Zealand as a senior economic analyst. I think the best thing about representing New Zealand on the world stage is knowing that not many people get to do that, and knowing that you can have a really huge influence on the people that are watching you. Like, you really don't know how many people are watching you, and it's only after the fact that you come back and someone says, oh, I saw you on TV, or like, my daughter really loved watching you and she wants to go and try athletics now, that you really understand the true impact of what you're doing out there. So that's probably my favourite thing. So I work at the Reserve Bank, and not a lot of people know what the Reserve Bank does. So I am in the financial markets department. So my department, alongside the economics department, help input into the monetary policy decision-making process. And the goal of monetary policy is to help promote price stability. So that means keeping inflation, which is pretty topical at the moment, between 1% and 3% over the medium term, which we see is about 3 years, and also to help support maximum sustainable employment. So my team helps track how monetary policy flows through financial markets in New Zealand. Things like bond markets, mortgage rates and deposit rates and bank lending, all that stuff. And the other half of our team is the international half. So they're tracking what other major economies around the world are doing, what's happening in their economies and financial markets. And all of that we feed into the monetary policy decision-making process. So in high school I studied economics, and it was a passion of mine immediately. It was just sort of like the way of thinking that really resonated with me, and I found it really intuitive. So I went over to the US, studied at Princeton University, which was a pretty academically rigorous time, but also got to represent the university for 4 years competing in the NCAA tournaments, so that was pretty cool. And then started off at the Reserve Bank, just straight into the graduate program, and I have just absolutely loved it there. The people are awesome. There was a really big grad cohort that came through. Yeah, it's just been good fun times. Being an elite athlete and working towards my career, I wouldn't have been able to do it with a lot of support. I think I often kind of get put on a pedestal as like, oh, there's an athlete that's got a full-time job, like, good for them. But honestly, I wouldn't have been able to do it without a huge amount of support and patience from my family, especially, also from the Reserve Bank. They've been so supportive, especially when I was working full-time and trying to train at the same time, just letting me be flexible with my hours and things like that. A lot of good time management. For me, my priorities, number one's usually sleep, because I know if I don't get enough sleep, my life falls apart. And then basically work around that, so it's kind of like I need to do X amount of training. Work was a bit flexible, so I was working full-time, so 40 hours a week or so. Some blocks of training, but in the lead up to the Olympics I dropped down to about a day a week. So they've been really flexible with my hours and kind of letting me dip in and out of different projects and things like that, and again, like, wouldn't have been able to do it without that flexibility. So yeah, it's been a team effort all round. So even though it's really hard doing both the full-time training and full-time, or sometimes less than full-time work, I find it so rewarding. I am a person that gets really bored if I'm only doing one thing. Especially with training, I find it really hard, because if you have a bad day of training, that's all you've got to think about. So you kind of go home and you wallow and you're like, oh, I've got to go and do that again tomorrow, and what if it's not good again? But when I'd finished training, I was kind of had to go straight back to work, or I was trying to get myself ready and do something else. So it was actually just such a good way to switch off from training. Same with work. If work was getting hard or stressful, I could go to the gym, go out throwing, and it was just a bit of stress relief. So it really complemented each other, I think. And it was the same through uni, like studying and doing sport. It was the same thing. If my classes were getting hard, I kind of got a nice break, go out throwing with the team. And yeah, same if the throwing wasn't going so good, I was like, oh, I could go and study for that exam, try and do a bit better on something else.
My name's Zoe Hobbs, and I'm the 100 metre Oceania and New Zealand record holder and the co-founder of AthosApp. I think the coolest thing is being a sprinter and being able to put sprinting on the map. It isn't a sport that we're really renowned for in New Zealand, but being able to put it on the map is a really cool opportunity, and hopefully inspire more of the younger generation to get involved. So AthosApp, we're a nutrition business that's catering to athletes. Athletes we've recognised are time poor, they're often on the go, sometimes financially limited, and sometimes lack the education of what to do with their nutrition, and athletes having complex and varying needs with fluctuating training as well as working on the side of sport. There's a lot of considerations at bay when it comes to deciding what you do with your nutrition. So we're essentially creating a tool that helps simplify everything and helps guide them with their nutrition to optimize their performance. I think there's a number of reasons that led me to becoming interested in nutrition. I was a boarder for 5 years, living away from home, and throughout that period I noticed a shift in not only my energy levels but also performance and how food was affecting that. I was iron deficient for a number of years in the hostel, and that was obviously affecting not only my health but also my performance. And then I moved away from home and moved up here to Auckland, and it was all self-catered. I had to start looking after myself, and through that was noticing a shift again, how my nutrition was affecting my performance. Because I'm so passionate about sport, I found another avenue that ties in quite nicely with that sport aspect. I can tie the two together. I'm also a creative person, and I think food is a cool avenue where you can actually get quite creative. So I am into like recipe development and just dabbling and playing around with food. I train better when I've got other things going on in my life, and I also work better when I'm able to train. Starting a business does take up a lot of time, but having something to take my mind off athletics is the part that benefits both. But I think also for me, because I'm so passionate about sport, being able to tie in my other passion, which is nutrition, and somehow stay connected to the sport. When I do step away from the track, then I can still be connected with athletics and high performance, and even enhancing and optimizing nutrition in athletes.
My name is Portia Bing. I'm a 400 metre hurdler. I'm a New Zealand record holder, and I'm also an advisor at the Serious Fraud Office. So the Serious Fraud Office are a law enforcement agency in New Zealand, so we investigate and prosecute serious financial crime and corruption. So I joined the Serious Fraud Office actually in 2020 during lockdown, during COVID. So I was living in Australia, being a 400 metre hurdler. I was working at a very small boutique law firm, doing all sorts of fun things like filling the printers with paper, because that's what happens when you work part-time at a law firm. And then when lockdown occurred and everything started shutting down, I had to make some changes in my life because I didn't know where sport was going. Events started to get cancelled, so I needed a bit more security in my life. So I applied for a job at the Serious Fraud Office just because it interested me, getting back into the public sector. Public sector is a little bit different from being in a private entity because you're working for the public, so you get exposure to different things. There's kind of a feeling of doing good for the community and for New Zealand as a whole. So yeah, it's quite a wholesome job. I ended up having a really good time with the job. I got on with the people really well, and I found a lot of flexibility in something that felt like it wasn't going to be flexible. Going into a full-time office job, I was like, oh, there's going to be no flexibility. But I found the complete opposite. I was able to train better. I had really good rhythm in my life, so it worked really well. And here I am 2.5, nearly 3 years later. Being an elite athlete and having a full-time career, they actually complement each other really well. I think it's a bit of a misconception to think you can't do both. I think everybody has the capacity to do more than one thing, but it's about finding things that complement each other. So for me, it was finding a job which was fulfilling, but also a job that respected and actually celebrated me as a person. And me as a person includes my sporting side. And public sector has been very supportive of that. So it's been a really big part for me. But I know it's not easy for a lot of athletes. I've had, like I said, I worked in Australia in a law firm part-time, and they didn't value my athletic side, the fact that I needed to go to training. They couldn't see any value, which, I've been able to bring a lot of the skills that I've learnt from track, a lot of the discipline into my work life at the Serious Fraud Office as well. So it's about finding that really good balance, I think. I think for the first time, a lot of people at work saw me actually running. Was at the Commonwealth Games, and everyone said to me, oh my gosh, I could never imagine you wearing sports clothes. And I was just like, that's interesting. And often when I turn up to training and I'm in my work clothes, people don't recognise me. So it's actually really interesting. It is like having two completely separate lives at times. I think the thing that I like the most about it is that the balance between both of them. So they complement each other, so they make me a better person, basically. Being able to be a sporting, active person in the community, but also progressing in my career is kind of like the best of both worlds. I think it kind of makes me fulfil both sides of my life instead of just, the old 9 to 5 what else do I do with life?
Alright, hello, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I enjoyed learning about my friends just a little bit more and seeing their life outside of the track in places like this. The reason I did this project is when you see, you know, some of our top athletes on the world stage, you just assume that's like all they do, or that's like who they are, which is cool. But I feel like not many people know, like they have these whole other lives and other world outside the track, you know, in places like this. With the three of them, you've got someone like Zoe, who has really craftily combined the skills that she's learned at university. Now she's a qualified nutritionist, and then she's also accumulated all these amazing skills on the track, being an elite athlete, things that you just like can't learn from a textbook. So that's really cool. And then you've got people like Julia and Portia who have gone completely opposite of what they do on the track and doing these really cool jobs, you know, working for the Reserve Bank or Serious Fraud Office. They are multi-dimensional human beings. And so I wanted to share with you what they do. What really inspired me, so it is actually quite funny. So when we're at the track, there's a little bit of a joke. When someone walks through the door in their work clothes, no one recognizes them. And that kind of sparked an idea. I was like, man, yeah, these guys have completely alter egos. I know when I come through in like things that aren't tights, you know, people think the same thing. So as part of that, I wanted to capture that visually. So I've gone for like a dual image type approach. I've taken portraits of them on the track and then in their work life, just to really show the contrast that these guys have and that they're multi-dimensional humans. I have used the Canon R5, and I've either used this bad boy, the 24-105, or a native RF version. You know what, I'm just gonna take this off me. Or I have used the EF adapter to the EF 24-70 Mark II, which have both been fantastic. It's been a massive like advantage to this project. This entire video was shot right here on the Canon C70. I really enjoy using this camera. I think it's such a great tool for any photographer, where you are pro or like serious amateur. I would love to thank Canon for supporting me through this project, for helping me bring my ideas to life, and I hope you enjoyed this piece.